Good evening. It's Tuesday, March 3rd. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It's election day in 14 states, and some of the candidates running for president are among those casting their vote. Massachusetts and Vermont are part of Super Tuesday, and Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders returned to their home states to take part in their primaries. Joe Biden's home state of Delaware is not voting. He's planning to spend election night here in California. And here in San Diego County, people have been voting for weeks, either by mailing their ballot or going to a voting center. But today is the big day. Polls are open until 8 p.m. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh is live in Kearny Mesa with a check on how Election Day is going so far. Steve?
Well, it's going pretty well. Slow and steady is what we're hearing so far. The polls opened this morning without any major incidents, according to the county. No record of any real problems. We talked with Registrar of Voters Michael Vu just a few minutes ago about how things are going.
We've been anticipating long lines. There's been some buildup, but no undue waiting times here at the Registrar of Voters office. I'm not hearing of any undue waiting times at any of our satellite locations. So if you're not registered to vote and you want to participate in this election, and there are many individuals that are not registered to vote but can participate in this election, get to one of these different sites of ours.
So we remember back in the 2018 general election, there were actually long lines here at the county. We're not seeing that this time. People were taking advantage for the first time with same-day registration. They've now opened that process up a bit to make it a little easier. If we pan down there, we can see we're seeing some voters trickle in. Actually, just a few minutes ago, we were seeing people bringing in food. We're expecting a long night here. People are going to be here until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Turnout is still the wild card here in California. This is the first time that voters here in California have voted on Super Tuesday. Some of the enthusiasm may have been pulled because some of the candidates have pulled out. Advice from Michael Vu is if you haven't turned in your mail-in ballot yet, go ahead and drop it off at the polling places. Yes, you can drop it in the mail, but they only have 3 days. If it's not here in 3 days, it won't count. So why not step by here and just go ahead and vote here at the polls. Reporting live at the county building, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Thanks so much, Steve. And KPBS will have special coverage of tonight's results. Investigative reporter Amitha Sharma will be part of our panel, and she's here for a preview. Amitha, thanks for being with us.
Oh, it's good to be here, Maya.
So the race for San Diego mayor is a crowded field. How will that be narrowed tonight?
Well, conventional wisdom says that the two people who will face off in the November general are a Republican and a Democrat. That they believe, conventional wisdom observers believe, that it will be Democratic State Assemblyman Todd Gloria. He's a former interim mayor. He's a former San Diego City Councilman, and Republican San Diego City Councilman Scott Sherman, who will face off with each other. But I don't know that you can discount Barbara Bree. She's a San Diego City Councilwoman. She's a Democrat. She's tried very hard to distinguish herself from Gloria on issues like electric scooters, Airbnbs. There's a fourth candidate, Tasha Williamson. She's a community activist, but she has never held elective office. There is an unknown surrounding this race. It's well known that Democrats outnumber Republicans in the city of San Diego 2-1, but there is a sizable chunk of voters in this city who don't have any party affiliation, who they throw their support behind, whether it's a mix of a Democrat and a Republican, Gloria, Bree, or Sherman, is unknown at this point. So it's going to be a nail-biter tonight.
And we will be watching. And one of the biggest ballot measures is Measure C, which would expand the convention center. How will tonight make or break those efforts?
Measure C has a very high bar to reach. It requires a 2/3 voter majority to pass. Now, this is a measure that would impose a 1.25% to 3.25% tax on hotel guests in San Diego. This has been put on the ballot before. Raising money to expand the convention center has been put on the ballot before, but it has failed. This time, the authors of this initiative have tried something different. They have paired this with raising money to fix streets and reduce homelessness. But not everybody everybody is buying that the money will be used for homelessness. They say that, look, some advocates say, look, there's no requirement that it be spent to reduce homelessness. But on the other end of this, there are some backers of Measure C that are across the spectrum. It's got the backing of business. It's got the backing of religious leaders. It has the backing of labor. But this is one that that will not likely pass.
It's an interesting one. And then in a few weeks, Duncan Hunter will be sentenced in his corruption case. Tonight, candidates are on the ballot to replace him. What are your thoughts about this race, real quick, please?
Maya, all eyes are on this race. The big question is, will it be two Republicans who face off in November? Will it be a combination of Carl DeMaios, former San Diego City Councilman, and former Republican Congressman Darrell Issa? Or will it include Republican Brian Jones? And will Democrat Amara Campa-Najjar, who's been fighting for this for 2 years, be on the ballot? Will it be a Democrat versus Republican or Republican versus Republican?
Really interesting. Amitha, we will see you later tonight.
We will.
Thank you so very much. And our special coverage, of course, of the California primary that starts at 10 o'clock will have results and reaction from the candidates. Our coverage here on KPBS will be simulcast on KPBS Radio. You can also stream it live on kpbs.org. And California is the biggest state voting today, but it's far from the only state. Some results are already in, with Joe Biden projected to win Virginia and North Carolina. Bernie Sanders is projected to win Vermont. John Lawrence has a closer look at Super Tuesday.
It's the most important day of the 2020 presidential campaign thus far. On Super Tuesday, contests are held in 14 states and American Samoa. Joe Biden heads into the day coming off a big weekend win in South Carolina.
Get up! Let's take back this country. We're the United States of America, and there's not a single thing we cannot do if we do it together.
On Monday, the former vice president got endorsements from former candidates Pete Buttigieg, Beto O'Rourke, and Amy Klobuchar.
I cannot think of a better way to end my campaign than joining his.
Senator Elizabeth Warren spent Monday in the delegate-rich state of California.
This is about both beating Donald Trump and about delivering real change in January 2021.
Former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg says being president requires a manager and executive.
I can beat Donald Trump, and I don't know that any of the other Democratic candidates can. And two, that I am ready for the job, and I don't think any of the others are.
As for the current frontrunner,
it looks like St. Paul is ready for a political revolution.
We are running the strongest grassroots campaign any candidate has run in the modern history of America.
Senator Bernie Sanders starts Super Tuesday with more delegates than Biden. I'm John Lawrence reporting.
There's still time to put your ballot together with the KPBS voter guide. You can enter your location and you'll be able to sort through all of the local races and ballot measures and save your picks along the way. We have a link to the KPBS voter guide on our homepage, kpbs.org. And it's election day, but the coronavirus remains a major story. The Federal Reserve took the rare step today of lowering its benchmark interest rate, but it wasn't enough to prevent another big sell-off. The Dow fell more than 700 points, wiping out most of Monday's record-breaking gain. Across the country, there are now more than 100 cases of coronavirus in 15 states. Washington State reported 3 more deaths today, bringing the total to 9. And earlier, President Trump talked about the administration's response.
Moving aggressively to accelerate the process of developing a vaccine. I met yesterday with the biggest drug companies, Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and many of the other great companies. And a lot of good things are happening, and they're happening very fast. I said, do me a favor, speed it up. Speed it up. And they will. They're working really hard and quick.
Developing a vaccine can be a slow process. Scientists must search for the part of the virus that activates the body's defense without causing the illness. And a newer approach of using DNA is far cheaper, easier, and doesn't use the virus at all. But no DNA-based vaccine has ever been licensed, like dozens of others produced the traditional way. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento goes into the San Diego lab and meets the team trying to break that barrier.
Brewing a DNA-based vaccine smells kind of like a college bar. You half expect your feet to stick to the floor as the scent of stale beer lingers inside the second-floor lab at Inovio Pharmaceuticals in Sorrento Valley. Research assistant Joseph Fader says the stench is E. coli bacteria used to grow hundreds of copies of DNA medicine.
So one of the ways that I've been explaining it is like, say your favorite fruit is strawberries, right? You like strawberries, but you don't like eating the plant. But you need the plant to grow the strawberries. So the E. coli cells are the plant.
And Inovio is trying to grow life-saving fruit amid a raging storm. As the coronavirus is battering cities around the globe, the company is racing to offer the world a life raft with a DNA-based vaccine. It uses sort of a blueprint of the virus that tells the immune system how to build its defense without ever introducing the germ. Inovio's senior vice president, Kate Broderick, is at the helm.
I got up at 2 this morning, so even today I'm like, oh.
The lead researcher at the center of Inovio's coronavirus vaccine operation says she manages the long days by starting with yoga.
Just helps so much because otherwise your brain never turns off.
And ends the days with what many other working parents use to unwind, a glass of wine, any kind of wine.
A very large one, don't really care, as long as it's got alcohol in it.
But in between those brief moments, she's pushing the vaccine forward. The company has made progress just weeks after an international body in Europe asked it to join the coronavirus vaccine race.
We have now started testing the vaccine in the lab, and we are extremely encouraged by the data that we've generated thus far. It's looking really very promising.
But positive results in a tray don't always mean a vaccine will prevent disease in humans. Inovio's other vaccines for Zika, MERS, and HPV have shown positive results in the first 2 out of 3 trials. But no DNA-based vaccine has overcome that final hurdle. If Inovio does navigate those uncharted waters, it'll generate a master vaccine that can be quickly modified to combat whatever virus is the next to emerge.
So the manufacturing remains the same, the way we formulate the vaccine in the vial remains the same, the way we deliver the vaccine remains the same, but just that tiny little piece of genetic information differs. And so every time we make progress on developing a vaccine like this, we can add that learning to the next outbreak or the next virus that we tackle.
Like with its Zika vaccine, it's still in the second round of human testing, but Inovio reached the first round in only 7 months. Inovio is hoping the coronavirus vaccine will make it there in 5 months. And the steps to get there are happening outside the lab and behind the desk of Stephanie Ramos. The director of preclinical development bounces on a yoga ball that serves as her seat as she compiles the necessary documents to begin human trials. The process is expedited under the outbreak circumstances, so that means a lot of overtime and Indian takeout.
Because you have one Indian meal, you're good for like the rest of the day.
She says the long hours and weekends are worth it because the climbing death toll from coronavirus reminds the researchers what they're up against.
It makes you feel good that you're doing everything you can to do your part to get that vaccine out there faster.
Ramos is approaching this not just as a scientist. A handmade Mother's Day gift sits on her desk.
I guess what I want to say is we do take to heart what is going into people. You know, we're not just here to say, check, yeah, we did our job, check, yeah, we did it first. No, that's the cherry on top.
Since our interview, another company announced its experimentally designed vaccine for coronavirus is ready for the first stage of human trials. Inovio is still working toward that milestone, but achieving successful results will be the bigger deal, not only for this virus, but for the next one that scientists know is coming, but aren't sure when or where. Karen Mento, KPBS News.
And one thing to keep an eye on in the weeks and months ahead is the Olympics. Organizers in Japan say the Games could be postponed until later this year. They're scheduled to start July 24th. Olympic rules allow for the cancellation of the Games if they're not held in the calendar year, meaning there is room for a delay if needed due to the coronavirus situation. While voters marched to the polls today, students across the Sweetwater School District marched out of their classrooms to protest teacher and staff layoffs. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong explains why students are so concerned about the district's proposal.
At 10 schools in the Sweetwater Union High School District, hundreds of students walked out of class. They stayed on campus, but they made their voices heard. The demonstrations are the result of last week's grueling board meeting where the Sweetwater School Board narrowly approved 237 layoffs, including 20 counselors, all of the district's librarians, and all the teachers at the district's learning centers, an alternative education program. At Mar Vista High School in Imperial Beach, students walked out in the late morning onto their football field. Jake Patton is a junior and a student leader at Mar Vista High School. He said these cuts would harm the most vulnerable students.
If your goal is to put the students first and we're taking away mentors, people that you see more than your family sometimes, especially for our kids who are only here and who have family back in TJ, you're cutting away the learning center, every single learning center. That's over 1,000 kids.
Students at Otay Ranch High School also walked out today. Cadence Gosler is a student leader who said she's standing up for friends who have relied on the services that could be cut next year.
These programs that these students are a part of that they're cutting are, for some students, is all they have, and we want them to acknowledge that.
A spokesman for the Sweetwater Union High School District said the district respects and welcomes the student voice in this process and will continue to work with students to ensure their input is heard. The district has until March 13th to notify all employees who might be terminated at the end of the year. Final decisions must be made by May 15th. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, we are on the ground all across the country with the latest as ballots are cast on Super Tuesday. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A busy day for firefighters in Riverside County. Helicopters were called in to gain control of a brush fire that burned a dry portion of the Santa Ana River in Norco. The cause of the fire is unknown, but it was close enough to a neighborhood to force some evacuations. No one was hurt and no homes were damaged. State water pollution regulators are sounding the alarm. They claim the federal government isn't doing enough to monitor the water flows that could contain cross-border pollution. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The Regional Water Quality Control Board has issued an investigative order that requires more monitoring of sewage-tainted cross-border flows. The order tells the International Boundary and Water Commission to monitor more than a dozen locations over 18 months. Regional Board Executive Director David Gibson says the order also calls for the testing results to be made public.
Right now, this monitoring isn't taking place. During the recent flows that we've had, I asked the International Boundary and Water Commission if they had done any monitoring. They had not.
Gibson says the monitoring will happen one way or another.
We're waiting to see if IBWC will indeed choose to comply with that investigative order, or will they challenge it in federal court or through some other means. We'll see. In the meantime, though, with the permit reissuance, we're already translating those monitoring requirements from the technical report into permanent monitoring that we would propose for the permit itself.
Gibson says the regional board is in the process of tightening the pollution requirements for the International Wastewater Treatment Plant's permits. That's a way of controlling cross-border flows. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Tornadoes that tore through Tennessee have killed at least 25 people and injured dozens more. The storm hit Nashville early this morning, destroying more than 140 buildings and burying victims in rubble. Daryl Forges has a look at the damage.
The sun rising over Tennessee reveals the true extent of the damage.
A lot of homes that were there in these subdivisions that are totally wiped away. I mean, there's nothing left. You can't even tell a home was there before.
A deadly tornado ripped through Nashville overnight.
There it is! Go! Inside! Now!
Leaving people here just moments to respond.
It sounded like gunshots going off. We heard the windows blowing in.
So we're running down the hallway, the ceiling is just caving in, just debris everywhere.
As the hours passed, more and more deaths confirmed. Now search and rescue teams are working to locate anyone who might still be trapped.
We're just trying to map it out so that we can actually put more boots on the grounds to make sure that we're taking care of people that we may not even know that's injured or hurt.
Schools in the area are closed for the week, some because of damage, some because they're still being used as shelters. Polling locations in several counties have delayed Super Tuesday voting by 1 hour due to street closures and power outages.
We also want folks to exercise their rights and get out there and vote.
In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm Daryl Forges reporting.
And sunny skies are expected to stick around for the next few days, but there's a chance of rain this weekend. Marvin Gomez has our forecast.
Hope you're having an excellent day so far. Thanks for staying with us here on KPBS News. I'm AccuWeather's Marvin Gomez, and as we take a look at your weather highlights for the next couple of days, well, notice how sunny conditions will continue to stick around for most of the week. Still on the warm side, clouds will be coming back towards San Diego County, especially towards the second half of the work week, and the weekend there is the potential for some wet weather. Temperatures for tonight, they are going to be chilly in a couple spots. We're looking at 40s across Escondido, Oceanside 44 for your low. Places like Ramona cooling down into the upper 30s. We do have a high pressure system in place though, and that's going to be providing those dry conditions for much of the southwest heading into the middle of the work week. And again, temperatures definitely warming up across San Diego County for your Wednesday and also for your Thursday. Tomorrow, it's going to be a bright day across Borrego Springs. Lots of sunshine out there, and temperatures will be near 80 for the afternoon. Chula Vista coming up to 67 degrees. Here's your extended forecast along the coast. Continuing to enjoy that offshore flow, at least today and tomorrow, but then those clouds will be returning for your Thursday and Friday. We have a cold front that's going to be getting towards our area Friday night, and that's going to bring us perhaps somewhat of a cool down, especially towards the weekend. Inland areas staying in the 70s for the next 3 days, and then Saturday, we're going to have temperatures in the 60s with more clouds around. In the higher terrain, the mountains, sunny for your Wednesday, more clouds for Thursday, Friday. We are in the 50s, 40s for the weekend, and along the deserts, well, it's going to be dry and quiet. Again, heading into the weekend, there might be the possibility for a couple of showers. That's all on my end. Thanks for staying with us here on KPBS News.
California's 53 congressional seats are on the ballot today. A local group spent the past few days making sure our state doesn't lose some of that representation in Congress after this year's census. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler has the story.
The 2020 census is gearing up to be a critical one for California. As more people leave the state in search of affordable housing, California stands to possibly lose a congressional seat after the 2020 census. For neighborhoods like City Heights, which is considered an especially hard-to-count area because of its high immigrant population, that loss of representation could be coupled with decreased federal support. Marta Romero, who moved to City Heights from Colombia 14 years ago, says this is what motivates her to make sure her neighbors get counted.
We live in an area that is low income. And the people in low income are the people that more suffer the consequences.
Romero works part-time with Mid-City Community Advocacy Network to help get out the word about the census. She's been going door-to-door across City Heights along with other part-time employees as part of Count Me In 2020, a coalition of nonprofits working together in San Diego and Imperial counties to make sure this year's census count captures everyone who lives in the community. This year's census forms will be going out either by mail or electronically by the 12th of March. This past weekend, Marta was joined by dozens of volunteers making hundreds of phone calls to let people know about the census and to get out and vote in today's primary election. She stressed the importance of explaining all the issues to voters in an area that has seen years of low voter turnout.
How my community can be protected. How my community can empower with this candidate, how my community can take the opportunities for the jobs, the education.
Since 2016, Mid-City CAN has been trying to increase the number of voters in City Heights by at least 5,000 for the 2020 general election. Griselda Ramirez, the organization's director of civic engagement, who started the voter campaign, says she sees the census and the act of voting as inextricably linked.
Well, these two things are related because the census will bring resources to this community, and also when you vote, you build power, right?
For Marta and the other community members in City Heights, the path to power and resources on this primary day begins with getting their numbers up, either on the census or at the ballot box. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
Aztecs men's basketball team is preparing for tournament play. KPBS reporter Lynn Walsh caught up with the players and their coach before they head to Las Vegas for the Mountain West Conference tournament.
It's a season that would put a smile on any athlete's face. 28 games, 1 loss. But for Aztecs point guard Malachi Flynn, March means starting from zero again.
Nothing matters no more. I mean, our record doesn't matter. Somebody could beat us the first day, so everybody's 0-0 at this point, and we got to go prove ourselves again. That's how we got to look at it.
The team is coming off a hard-fought win against Nevada last weekend and their only loss this season to UNLV 2 weeks ago. The Aztecs have the #1 seed in the Mountain West tournament that begins tomorrow, and they're hoping to grab another #1 seed ranking in the NCAA March Madness tournament in 2 weeks. To do that, Coach Brian Dutcher says they don't necessarily need to win the Mountain West.
We have to probably win a game or two to be a #1 seed. I don't know if we have to win all of them. A lot of that has to depend on how everyone else does. But we want to play our best basketball, regardless of seed. We don't want to go there and take a step back.
I want to win the Mountain West Conference Tournament first and foremost, and me personally, I've never won a conference tournament, so this is something on my checklist that I want to accomplish. So right now, all my focus is towards the Mountain West Conference Tournament.
The Aztecs will have to wait until Selection Sunday on March 15th to learn their fate in the Big Dance. Their first game in the Mountain West tournament is Thursday, where they play the winners of the Fresno State Air Force game.
For both teams, it's a interesting challenge because obviously Air Force is a Princeton offense. Justin's very good at coaching his team, ball screens, post touches. So we got to mix a little bit of both and at the same time get our team ready to play offensively.
SDSU would need to win 2 games to be in the Mountain West Tournament Championship this Saturday. Lynn Walsh, KPBS News.
So join us tonight for special coverage of all the election results. We have a special hour-long show starting at 10 right here on KPBS. Our coverage will also be simulcast on KPBS Radio and also live streamed on kpbs.org. Again, that starts at 10 o'clock tonight. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.